So, as a therapist, people have asked me, do I go to therapy or what's my way of taking care of myself? What's my self care? And I love this question because I enthusiastically will always say movies are my therapy. I absolutely love watching movies. And once you start to do some reading on Jungian psychology or Joseph Campbell or just these different things, and you start to see these patterns in movies and directors and people who create franchises like George Lucas with Star Wars or Pixar, all these different stuff that we watch every single day. As I get older, I have found that there are just so much hidden meanings behind it, and I wouldn't even say that it's most of it is intentional. I think directors or writers have that in mind, but even then, I think even people in the arena of cinema, that there are just parts of our souls that go on that screen that intentional or not, it's always going to pop up. And somebody may not have had that intention, they may not have thought about why they chose that color or that scene or that dialogue. And it may not have been a conscious choice, but I firmly believe that we find aspects of our soul on the screen. And that's why I love movies so much. It really helps for me have a template pattern of what to do next because your life is full of decisions and you're always bombarded. I think in this world right now we have too many decisions to make and we're always having to make decisions. And I always use a principle based approach to pretty much everything in my life. And I love movies because movies help kind of teach us some of those principles to go off of. One of my favorite commentaries, brief commentaries, was Jordan Peterson when he talked about Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. And he was talking about how, Peter Pan is the most lost of them all. And that set me down a rabbit hole on Peter Pan and the movie Hook. So if you watch Disney's Peter Pan, the animated, and then the movie Hook, which is essentially a sequel to that movie, there's so much in there. And that discussion I've had about responsibility and privilege, it comes from that. And so I just want to share some of my stuff that I've learned. I've shared it a few times with some people, and I don't know. We'll see how this goes. So if you like my movie analysis, then maybe I'll do more. This isn't necessarily. I know there's that YouTube channel, Cinema Therapy. I'm not necessarily diagnosing in these. I'm actually going into the deeper meanings and layers of the dialogue and the choices and the characters. So one of the things I love is for you have to understand this idea that I think Peter Pan. First off, the whole premise of this story is really about the evolution of young men, where there's these little boys in Neverland and they're lost, and then they're going up against these pirates who are adults, and these pirates are just ravaging and taking and waging war. And then you have these lost boys who they never really grow up in Neverland. And even the Neverland name, it has its play on itself because if you have no place to land, you have no place to secure yourself and to build forward. And so Jordan Peterson, I think he was right when he said, Peter Pan is the most lost of them all because he's the leader of them. He kind of keeps them lost. And he's always at odds with Captain Hook. And really, I would say Captain Hook and Peter are actually the same person at two different junctions in their life. But I think Peter is who Hook would have been, and I think Captain Hook is who Peter could become if they kind of stayed in this infinite loop of time. The Lost Boys represent boys or young men who want to engage in everything fun, everything privileged in their life. So the never growing up, staying young, not being tied to any kind of responsibility. And we see that, as young men grow up into young adults, if they're not if responsibility is not put on them, they're not really likely to take that responsibility. And then you get ages 18 to 25 where that's kind of those fun party years. And that's those times where uh, a young man has to decide if he's going to grow up or not. And yes, we age, we do get physiologically older, but psychologically we may stay little boys because little boys just want to play. They don't really want to have responsibility. On the other hand, though, you have a pirate, and a pirate is somebody who takes on nothing but responsibility. And these what I would say your workaholics. These are the men in life who they end up just sinking so much into their career or their work that they actually lose that purpose in the process of what they were doing it for. The Lost Boys and the pirates, though they were always waging with each other, waging war, they actually could fill in the gaps that are needed in each one. So, for example, the Lost Boys need to be found. They need an example. They need somebody to guide them. And the pirates, being the adults, could do that. But unfortunately, the pirates are too busy waging war. And really, waging war comes more so from the loss of meaning. Captain Hook, he talks about it all the time in the movie Hook, and he says death is the last great adventure, essentially. And what he's basically saying is he's already done everything. He's already killed Lost Boys. He's already taken over things. He's already done everything there is. And what he's actually saying is, I don't have any purpose in this anymore. I don't know what else to do with my life. There's nothing that's filling in that gap. But the Lost Boys could really use somebody. And they both actually complement and fill in that gap for each other, but they're too busy fighting each other when the real nemesis in this whole story of Peter Pan and Hook is not actually each other.